Have you ever wondered why some people can walk through life like they're untouchable? Not because they're cold or heartless, but because they seem to have found something the rest of us are desperately searching for. Maybe you're tired of being a prisoner to other people's words, their actions, their moods. Maybe you're exhausted from feeling like everyone else holds the remote control to your emotional state. One criticism, and you're devastated. One rejection, and you're questioning everything about yourself. One betrayal, and you're drowning in anger that consumes you for days. But what if I told you that there's a 17th century philosopher who discovered the exact mechanism that keeps you trapped in this emotional slavery? More importantly, he found the precise method to break free from it forever. His name was Baruch Spinoza, and he didn't just theorize about emotional freedom. He mapped out the exact pathway from suffering to liberation. Here's what nobody tells you about Spinoza's discovery. It's not about becoming numb or detached. It's about something far more powerful. And if you've made it this far, it's not by chance. This is for you who are tired of being an emotional puppet, tired of giving your power away to every person and situation around you. I'm going to show you that it doesn't have to be this way. But I have to warn you, what I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about why you suffer. Are you ready? Let's get started. You believe that what hurts you comes from out there. The harsh words, the betrayals, the rejections, the way people treat you. You think you're the victim of other people's cruelty, their indifference, their selfishness. But here's the brutal truth that Spinoza discovered. You are not suffering because of what others do to you. You are suffering because you don't understand why they do it. Think about it for a moment. Why does the same insult devastate you, but to a sage, it's merely words in the wind? Why does rejection destroy you, while a wise mind sees it only as a misalignment of paths? Why does betrayal leave you in pieces, while to the wise, it reveals the nature of the other person, not your own worth? The difference isn't in what happened. The difference is in the level of understanding. Spinoza called this the difference between passive affects and active affects. But to grasp this revolutionary distinction, you first need to understand something that will completely change how you see reality itself. And this is where most people turn away, because it requires abandoning the comforting lie that you're special, that the universe has singled you out for punishment or reward. Here's what Spinoza knew that you don't. Nothing in this universe is random. Nothing happens to you. Everything happens because of you, through you, as an inevitable result of an infinite chain of causes and effects. The person who insulted you didn't wake up thinking, "How can I hurt this person today?" Their words were the necessary result of their biology, their upbringing, their current state, their own unhealed wounds, all colliding in that exact moment to produce those exact words and your devastation. That wasn't random either. It was the inevitable result of every experience, every wound, every insecurity that has shaped you up to this point. This isn't philosophy. This is the cold, liberating truth about how reality actually works. And once you see it, everything changes. Most people resist this truth because it means taking responsibility not just for your actions, but for your reactions. It means admitting that your suffering is not noble, it's not meaningful, it's simply the result of incomplete understanding. And that's exactly where the transformation begins, because the moment you understand this, you stop being a victim and start being a scientist of your own experience. Now, here's what nobody understands about emotional pain. It's not the event that destroys you, it's your confused idea about the event. Let me explain what this means in practical terms. Passive affects are what most people live with their entire lives. This is when you're being acted upon by external forces that you don't understand. You feel anger, but you don't know why. You feel fear, but you can't trace its origin. You feel devastated by someone's words, but you have no idea why those specific words triggered such a massive response. It's like being a ship in a storm with no understanding of weather patterns. You're completely at the mercy of forces beyond your control because you don't comprehend them. Here's what's really happening when someone's words destroy you. The cause appears external. their insult, their rejection, their betrayal. Your understanding is incomplete. Your mind creates a simple, confused story. They attacked me. They don't value me. I'm not good enough. Your power disappears. Because you don't understand what's really happening, you become a puppet to the situation. You react instead of respond. You suffer instead of act. This is what Spinoza called bondage. You are literally enslaved by your own confusion. But there's another way to experience life. And this is where everything changes. Active effects. This is where the magic happens. This is when the primary cause of your emotional state becomes internal, your own rational understanding. Let me show you how this transformation actually works. Imagine the same insult, the same rejection, the same betrayal. But this time, instead of being swept away by confusion, you activate what Spinoza called adequate ideas. Clear, rational understanding of what's really happening. You think, this person's words are not a judgment of my worth. They are the inevitable result of their own nature meeting this specific circumstance. Their anger comes from their own unhealed wounds, their own insecurities, their own history of pain. And then you go deeper. And why did this affect me so strongly? Because it activated an existing wound, a fear I already carried, an insecurity that was already there, waiting to be triggered. Watch what happens when you understand with this level of clarity. The pain doesn't get suppressed, it gets transformed. The rage that was consuming you becomes curiosity. The devastation becomes compassion. Your power returns because you're no longer confused. You're no longer being acted upon. You're acting from understanding. This is what Spinoza meant when he said, "A passion ceases to be a passion as soon as we form a clear and distinct idea of it." Here's what most people miss. This isn't about positive thinking or reframing. This is about seeing reality clearly for the first time. It's about understanding the actual mechanics of human behavior, both theirs and yours. And when you understand the mechanics, you can no longer be surprised by the outcome. Think about it. When you understand that fire burns, you don't get angry at fire for burning you if you touch it. You simply understand its nature and act accordingly. The same thing happens with human behavior once you see the patterns clearly. Now, what I'm about to show you is the practical method that you can apply immediately. Spinoza discovered that there are 3 specific steps to transform any passive effect into an active one. 3 steps that turn suffering into power, confusion into clarity, bondage into freedom. The first step is recognition. The moment you feel that familiar pain, the sting of criticism, the ache of rejection, the burn of betrayal, you pause. You don't try to change it or fix it or make it go away. You simply recognize, I am currently being controlled by a cause I don't understand. This recognition is crucial because most people immediately try to escape the pain. They distract themselves, they numb themselves, they blame others, they create stories. But Spinoza knew that the path to freedom leads through understanding, not around it. You acknowledge, right now, I'm in a state of confusion. Something external has triggered something internal, and I don't yet see the full picture. The second step is investigation. Now you become a detective of your own experience. With radical curiosity, you ask, what is the complete chain of causes that led to this exact moment? You investigate both sides. First, their side. What experiences, what wounds, what pressures, what circumstances led this person to act in exactly this way? If I could see their complete history, their current state, their fears and insecurities, would their behavior make perfect sense? Then, your side. What existing wound in me did this activate? What old fear? What unhealed trauma? What story about myself did this trigger? Why did these specific words or actions hit me so precisely where I'm vulnerable? You're not doing this to excuse anyone's behavior or to blame yourself. You're doing this to understand, because understanding is power. The third step is forming what Spinoza called the adequate idea. This is where the transformation happens. As you gather the pieces, suddenly the confusion lifts. You see the complete picture. You understand not just what happened, but why it had to happen exactly as it did. And in that moment of clear seeing, something miraculous occurs. The passive affect dissolves and is replaced by an active one. The anger becomes compassion, not because you're trying to be nice, but because you understand that hurt people hurt people. The devastation becomes curiosity, not because you're avoiding pain, but because you see the patterns clearly. The fear becomes confidence, not because you're pretending to be brave, but because you understand the mechanics and are no longer surprised by them. This is what Spinoza called moving from imagination to reason, from confused ideas to adequate ideas, from being acted upon to acting from your own nature. Let me give you a real-time practice that you can use immediately. Think of someone who has hurt you recently, someone whose words or actions still sting when you remember them. I want you to actually feel that pain right now. Don't push it away. Now, let's walk through Spinoza's method together. Start with recognition. I am feeling anger, sadness, or fear, and this emotion is controlling me right now. I don't fully understand why this person's actions affected me so deeply, which means I'm in a state of confusion and reduced power. Move to investigating their causality. Ask yourself, if I could see this person's complete history, their childhood wounds, their current fears, their recent struggles, their deepest insecurities, would their behavior make perfect sense? Think about it deeply. That person who was cruel to you, what if they were raised by cruel people? What if they're terrified of vulnerability? What if they're projecting their own self-hatred onto you? That person who rejected you, what if they're running from their own fear of intimacy? What if they're overwhelmed by their own life? What if they genuinely believe they're not good enough for you? That person who betrayed you, what if they're acting from desperation? What if they're repeating patterns they learned in childhood? What if they're so disconnected from themselves, they don't even understand their own motivations? Next, investigate your own reactivity. Now ask, what wound in me did this activate? What story about myself did this confirm or threaten? Maybe their criticism triggered your fear that you're not good enough, a fear that started when you were 7 years old and your parent dismissed your excitement about something you created. Maybe their rejection activated your terror of abandonment, a terror that was born when someone you loved left without explanation. Maybe their betrayal hit your wound around trust, a wound that has been building since the first time someone you believed in let you down. Finally, form the adequate idea. Now you see it clearly. This person acted from their own conditioning, their own wounds, their own unconscious patterns, and you reacted from yours. Two sets of causality colliding in a moment, creating an inevitable outcome. They didn't hurt you because you're worthless. They acted because they're human, operating from their own programming. And you didn't react because you're weak. You reacted because you're human, with your own history of experiences that created specific sensitivities. Feel what happens when you see it this clearly. The blame dissolves. The confusion lifts. The personal offense evaporates. What remains is understanding. And from understanding comes power. When you understand your own causality with the same clarity you bring to understanding others, something miraculous happens. You stop fighting yourself. You stop being surprised by your own reactions. You start working with your nature instead of against it. This is what Spinoza meant by self-knowledge. Not knowing facts about yourself, but understanding the deep causality that drives your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And once you have this understanding, you become genuinely free. Free from the tyranny of other people's opinions because you understand where they come from. Free from the chaos of your own emotions because you understand their origins. Free from the suffering that comes from confusion because you see everything clearly. But there's one final layer to this transformation that most people never reach. It's what happens when you apply this understanding, not just to individual events, but to your entire life story. When you start to see how every wound, every trauma, every difficult experience has been part of an inevitable chain that has shaped you into exactly who you are right now. When you understand that even your pain has been serving your growth, even your mistakes have been teaching you what you needed to know. This is what Spinoza called eternal perspective. Seeing your life not as a series of random events happening to you, but as a perfect unfolding of cause and effect, all leading to this moment of understanding. And from that perspective, you don't just become free from suffering, you become grateful for it, because you see how it has all been in service of bringing you to this place of clarity. Every wound has been teaching you compassion. Every betrayal has been teaching you discernment. Every rejection has been teaching you self-reliance. Every fear has been teaching you courage. When you see this clearly, you don't just become free from your past, you become grateful for it, because you understand that every single experience has been serving your evolution into who you're meant to be. Now that you've seen the method, there's something I need to tell you that might be the most important thing you'll hear today. Nothing, absolutely nothing, will shield you from pain if you remain unconscious of your own patterns and the patterns of others. The words will continue to sting. The rejections will continue to devastate. The betrayals will keep breaking you open until you develop the one thing that makes you truly untouchable: understanding. But here's what I want you to know. This understanding isn't a destination, it's a practice. Every single day, you'll have opportunities to choose between confusion and clarity, between being acted upon and acting from knowledge. Someone will say something that triggers you. Someone will behave in a way that disappoints you. Someone will make a choice that affects you negatively. And in that moment, you'll have a choice. You can react from your wounds, your fears, your old programming, and remain a prisoner to external circumstances. Or you can pause, investigate, understand, and transform that very moment into an opportunity for greater freedom. Spinoza said, "The more we understand particular things, the more we understand God." What he meant is that every time you truly understand why something happens, you connect with the fundamental intelligence that governs reality itself. Every person who hurts you becomes a teacher. Every situation that challenges you becomes a classroom. Every emotion that overwhelms you becomes raw material for wisdom. This is how you become untouchable, not by avoiding life, but by understanding it so deeply that nothing can shake your foundation of clarity. This is how you reclaim your power, not by controlling others, but by understanding yourself and them so completely that you're no longer surprised, no longer confused, no longer reactive. This is how you find peace. Not by getting everything you want, but by understanding why everything happens exactly as it does. If this resonates with you, if something inside you has awakened to this possibility, write in the comments, "I choose understanding." Let's start a movement of people who refuse to remain victims of their own confusion. People who are committed to seeing clearly, understanding deeply, and living from wisdom instead of wounds. And remember, this video is just the beginning. Real transformation happens when you apply these principles daily, when you make understanding your practice, when you choose clarity over confusion in every moment that matters. The next video will take this even deeper, because once you master Spinoza's method, there are even more powerful applications that can transform not just how you handle pain, but how you create joy, how you build relationships, and how you design a life that reflects your deepest truth. You've come this far because you're ready for this level of understanding. Don't stop now. Real liberation is just beginning. I'll see you in the next one.